What if human history is not a straight line of progress, but only the final chapter of a much older story? How could a crafted metal mold end up sealed inside coal formed hundreds of millions of years ago? Why does an underground city exist that could shelter tens of thousands of people, complete with air shafts and food stores? And how can footprints nearly 4 million years old look strikingly similar to the way modern humans walk today? These are not myths or legends. They are real discoveries, documented and debated by scientists. If all of them exist, what part of our past have we failed to understand? For more than a century, archaeology has worked under a powerful assumption. Human progress follows a slow upward curve. Stone tools lead to metal, metal to machines, and machines to modern civilization. Each era is placed neatly into a timeline, each discovery carefully fitted into what is already known. Most of the time, this system works. But occasionally, something emerges that does not fit yet. Across different continents and time periods, archaeologists have uncovered objects and structures that appear to be out of place, not because they are imaginary, but because their context defies expectation. These are not artifacts found in myths or folklore. They come from mines, excavation sites, sealed geological layers, and carefully documented digs. Their materials can be tested, their locations can be verified. And yet, their existence raises questions that standard explanations struggle to fully resolve. Science approaches such anomalies with caution, as it should. Many strange discoveries eventually find rational explanations: contamination of layers, misinterpretation of purpose, or natural processes that mimic human design. Skepticism is not a weakness of archaeology. It is its foundation. Every claim must withstand scrutiny, replication, and debate. And still, a small number of findings remain deeply uncomfortable. Some suggest technical skills far beyond what their era is supposed to allow. Others hint at systems of knowledge, mechanical, informational, or architectural, that appear unexpectedly advanced. A few challenge assumptions not about technology, but about human development itself. How early we walked, planned, recorded information, or prepared for catastrophe. Importantly, none of these discoveries force a single conclusion. They do not demand belief in lost super-civilizations or extraordinary visitors. What they demand instead is humility, an acknowledgement that the historical record is incomplete, and that absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. Written history covers only a fraction of humanity's existence. Before writing, knowledge had to survive through memory, ritual, craftsmanship, and physical construction. When societies collapsed through climate change, conflict, or migration, their techniques and understanding often vanished with them. What remains are fragments. In this documentary, we examine 10 real archaeological discoveries that continue to resist easy classification. Each one has been studied, debated, and cautiously interpreted. None have been conclusively dismissed. Together, they form a pattern, not of certainty, but of unanswered questions. As we move through these findings, the goal is not to rewrite history, but to listen carefully to what the evidence allows us to ask. Because sometimes the most important discoveries are not the ones that give us answers, but the ones that reveal how much we still do not know. 1. The London Artifact, a metal mold sealed in coal. Deep beneath the coal fields of England, miners once uncovered something that should not have existed where it was found, not resting on the surface, not lodged inside a crack, but fully sealed inside a solid mass of coal, as though the object had been present long before the coal itself hardened around it. The object was small, metallic, and unmistakably shaped by intent. Its smooth curves, deliberate symmetry, and hollow interior closely resembled a bell-shaped casting mold, the kind used to shape molten metal into a finished form. This discovery would later become known as the London Artifact. What makes this find deeply unsettling is not the object itself, but its geological context. The coal seam encasing it dates back to the Carboniferous period, more than 300 million years ago, long before mammals, long before dinosaurs, and unimaginably long before any known human civilization capable of metalworking. Geologists examining the coal reported no signs of intrusion. There were no fractures, no evidence that the seam had been opened and resealed, No contamination pathways that could explain how a modern object slipped inside. The coal appeared intact, compressed naturally over immense spans of time. Analysis of the artifact's material only intensified the mystery. It was not a random mineral formation. The composition suggested a metallic alloy, consistent with intentional smelting. Smelting requires controlled heat, precise temperatures, and an understanding of how different materials behave under extreme conditions. These are not accidental processes. They are learned technologies. Faced with this contradiction, researchers proposed alternative explanations. Some suggested misidentification. Perhaps the object was a naturally formed concretion shaped by pressure. But the interior cavity, uniform thickness, and tooling-like marks resist such explanations. Nature can create strange forms, but rarely produces symmetry with purpose. Others argued for contamination, that the object somehow entered the coal at a later date, yet this theory struggles against the physical evidence. There were no cracks through which the object could have been inserted, and no disturbance to the surrounding layers. The most radical interpretations, those invoking lost civilizations, remain speculative and unsupported by additional evidence. And yet, dismissing the artifact entirely proves just as difficult. The London artifact occupies an uncomfortable space in archaeology. It is neither fully explained nor easily ignored. It does not rewrite history, but it presses against its boundaries. If the dating is correct, then either our understanding of the coal's formation is incomplete, or the assumptions about when complex craftsmanship could exist are too narrow. And that leads to a troubling question. If even one manufactured object can exist outside its expected time, how many others might have been lost, overlooked, or never recognized at all? 2. The London Hammer, a tool caught in stone. In the quiet town of London, Texas, a discovery was made that would ignite decades of debate, not because it was imaginary, but because it sat uncomfortably between geology and human history. Embedded within a solid mass of stone was an object unmistakably familiar, a hammer. At first glance, the tool appeared simple, a metal head, a wooden handle, nothing extraordinary, and yet the circumstances of its discovery made it anything but ordinary. The hammer was found encased in a rock concretion, with the stone hardened tightly around the metal, as though the object had been trapped and preserved over a vast stretch of time. The metal head showed signs of deliberate forging. Analysis revealed an unusual composition, high-purity iron with minimal impurities, including an almost complete absence of sulfur. This level of refinement is uncommon even in some modern industrial processes, and far exceeds what would typically be expected from primitive blacksmithing techniques. More curious still was the handle. Portions of the wooden shaft had undergone partial fossilization, suggesting long-term mineral replacement rather than simple decay. Fossilization is not a process that occurs quickly. It implies extended burial under conditions that allow minerals to slowly replace organic material at a microscopic level. The controversy lies in the surrounding stone. Some geologists argue that the rock encasing the hammer is far older than the tool itself, potentially millions of years old. Others counter that the stone is a younger concretion, formed around the hammer through mineral-rich groundwater over a much shorter time span. This distinction matters. If the stone is ancient, then the hammer challenges the accepted timeline of metallurgy. If the stone is recent, then the artifact becomes an example of geological mimicry, where natural processes create the illusion of great age. Science has not reached a unanimous conclusion. What makes the London hammer particularly valuable is not what it proves, but what it demonstrates about the limits of interpretation. It reveals how easily assumptions can shape conclusions and how evidence can be read in multiple ways depending on context. The hammer is a reminder that archaeology is not just about objects, but about processes, how materials interact with their environment over time. It teaches caution. Not every anomaly overturns history, but not every anomaly should be dismissed. And yet, even the most conservative explanations leave unanswered questions. Why does the metal show such purity? Why does the handle display mineralization patterns inconsistent with short-term burial? The London hammer remains suspended between skepticism and mystery, a familiar tool, caught in unfamiliar stone. If time can disguise itself so convincingly in rock, how many other artifacts might be hiding behind geological illusions, waiting to challenge what we think we know? 3. The Baigong Pipes, metal tubes in the mountain. High on the barren slopes of Mount Baigong in China's Qinghai province, far from major ancient settlements, archaeologists encountered a puzzle carved directly into the landscape. Embedded in the rock face were metal tubes, some protruding from the mountain wall, others descending into the ground and leading toward a nearby saltwater lake. These were not isolated fragments, they formed a network. The tubes varied in diameter, ranging from a few centimeters to several inches. Some appeared deliberately aligned, while others vanished deep into the mountain itself. Their placement suggested intention rather than randomness, as if the mountain had once housed an internal system now exposed by erosion. Material analysis produced unexpected results. The tubes contained iron oxide, along with traces of silicon and calcium. Portions showed evidence of having been heated, implying exposure to high temperatures rather than simple mineral deposition. Yet the surrounding environment offers no obvious explanation for why such a system would exist or who might have built it. Local legends spoke vaguely of ancient structures and unknown builders, but no historical records describe industrial activity in the region. There are no known settlements nearby that could account for the scale or complexity of the tubes, and the site's remoteness makes modern contamination unlikely. Skeptics argue that the Baigong pipes may be the result of natural geological processes. One explanation proposes that mineral-rich groundwater slowly filled cracks in the rock, depositing iron over long periods until tube-like formations emerged. In this view, the appearance of design is an illusion created by erosion and pattern recognition. But this explanation does not satisfy everyone. Some tubes maintain consistent internal diameters. Others appear to intersect at angles difficult to reconcile with random mineral flow, and the presence of heated metal raises questions that purely natural models struggle to answer. If the pipes were engineered, their purpose remains unclear. Were they part of an ancient water management system, a method of controlling salinity, or something entirely different, now stripped of its context by time and tapo? Importantly, no definitive claim has been proven. The Baigong pipes exist in a gray zone between geology and archaeology, where classification itself becomes the problem. They are either an extraordinary coincidence of nature or the remnants of a technological effort that left no written trace. What makes the site unsettling is not that it proves an advanced lost civilization, but that it resists categorization. Archaeology depends on patterns, tools, dwellings, debris. The Baigong pipes stand alone, disconnected from the usual signals of human activity. And that isolation forces a difficult question. If a technical structure survives but the society around it does not, how do we decide whether it ever existed at all? 4. The hydraulis, a machine that turned water into music. Among the ruins of the ancient Mediterranean world, between broken columns, collapsed theaters, and sunken shipwrecks, archaeologists uncovered fragments of an instrument that quietly rewrote assumptions about ancient engineering. It was known as the hydraulis, a water-powered pipe organ developed in the Hellenistic period and later refined by Roman engineers. At first glance, the hydraulis appears to be a musical device. Rows of bronze pipes, carefully cut to precise lengths, were arranged to produce specific tones. But beneath this artistic surface lay something far more sophisticated, a mechanical system that used water pressure to regulate airflow. The principle was elegant and complex. Water was directed into a sealed chamber, where it stabilized air pressure before the air was forced through the pipes. This solved a problem that plagued early wind instruments, uneven airflow causing unstable sound. By using water as a regulator, the hydraulis achieved consistent, controllable tones, something not seen again in Europe until medieval times. This was not a simple invention. It required an understanding of hydraulics, pressure equilibrium, metallurgy, and acoustics. Valves and levers allowed performers to control pitch with surprising precision. The pipes themselves had to be manufactured within extremely tight tolerances. Even minor deviations would produce dissonance. What makes the hydraulis especially unsettling is its timeline. It appeared centuries before similar mechanical principles became widespread. There is little evidence of gradual experimentation leading up to it in the archaeological record. Instead, it seems to emerge already mature, functional, refined, and widely used. Ancient texts describe hydraulic organs being played at public games, religious ceremonies, and imperial celebrations. Their sound was described as powerful, commanding, and unlike anything else of the era. Some fragments recovered from shipwrecks even suggest ongoing refinement, indicating a tradition of mechanical innovation that persisted quietly within workshops now lost to history. Yet after the decline of the Roman world, much of this knowledge disappeared. Medieval organs would later rely on bellows, not water, and the sophisticated pressure regulation of the hydraulis vanished for centuries. The question is not whether the Romans built machines. They clearly did. The question is how much they understood, and how much of that understanding was never recorded, never transmitted, and never recovered. The hydraulis challenges the assumption that ancient technology was always primitive, linear, and fragile. It reveals a moment when engineering, physics, and artistry converged into a true machine, only to fade from collective memory. If such complexity could arise, function, and then be lost, what other machines might history have quietly erased? 5. The Olmec obsidian mirrors. Perfect reflection from volcanic glass. Deep within ancient Mesoamerica, long before the rise of the Maya or the Aztecs, the Olmec civilization produced objects that continue to unsettle modern researchers. Among the most enigmatic of these creations are their obsidian mirrors, dark, polished discs made from volcanic glass, capable of reflecting light with startling clarity. Obsidian is not an easy material to work with. It fractures unpredictably, dulls tools quickly, and resists fine shaping. And yet, Olmec artisans transformed this brittle stone into surfaces so smooth that even microscopic examination reveals almost no irregularities. The finish rivals that of modern optical components. These mirrors were not mass-produced decorations. Each one was individually shaped, ground, and polished through a painstaking process that likely took countless hours. Achieving such precision required not only patience, but a deep understanding of how the material behaved at every stage of refinement. What makes the mirrors even more mysterious is their context. They were found in elite burials, worn as ceremonial ornaments, embedded into ritual objects, or aligned with sacred architecture. Many show wear patterns suggesting they were used horizontally, as if to reflect the sky, or vertically, positioned like portals rather than simple reflective tools. Archaeologists remain divided over their purpose. Some believe the mirrors played roles in divination or healing rituals, used by shamans to induce altered states of perception. Others suggest astronomical applications, reflecting celestial bodies during ceremonies tied to seasonal cycles. A more conservative view sees them as symbols of power, objects that visually reinforced authority through mastery of rare and difficult materials. Yet even the most cautious interpretations acknowledge the same core problem. The level of craftsmanship exceeds expectations. There is little evidence of an incremental learning curve leading to such perfection. The mirrors appear as finished products of an already mature tradition. Adding to the mystery is their distribution. Obsidian mirrors have been found far beyond the Olmec heartland, implying trade networks that transmitted not just objects but specialized knowledge. Techniques had to be taught, preserved, and protected, suggesting guild-like systems of expertise. The Olmec mirrors remind us that advanced skill does not always announce itself through machines or monuments. Sometimes it survives only as surface perfection, silently reflecting a depth of knowledge that left no written explanation behind. If a civilization could master optical refinement without metal tools or modern abrasives, what other techniques might have flourished and vanished without leaving obvious traces? 6. The Karal Kipu, information before writing. On the arid coast of Peru, where desert winds meet the Pacific Ocean, archaeologists uncovered the remains of Caral, one of the oldest known urban centers in the world. Flourishing nearly 5,000 years ago, Caral predates the Inca, predates most Mesoamerican civilizations, and even predates the earliest pyramids of Egypt. Among its ruins, researchers discovered something that quietly challenged the history of communication itself: early forms of quipu as or. At first glance, these objects appear simple. Bundles of cords made from plant fibers tied with knots at measured intervals. But closer inspection reveals deliberate structure. The cords vary in thickness, color, twist direction, and knot placement. These are not decorative choices. They are variables. Later, Inca quipus are known to have functioned as accounting devices, capable of recording quantities, calendars, and administrative data. What makes the Carol quipus extraordinary is their age. They precede the Inca system by thousands of years, suggesting that structured information storage existed long before writing emerged in the region. The craftsmanship is precise. Fibers were spun uniformly, dyed with pigments that remain visible after millennia, and tied with consistency that implies a codified logic. This was not improvisation. It was a system that had to be learned, taught, and remembered. Skeptics once argued that the cords were purely symbolic or ritualistic, but statistical analysis of knot patterns shows repetition and hierarchy, features consistent with data encoding rather than ornamentation. The implication is profound. Corral society may have managed resources, schedules, or social organization through a non-written information technology. This challenges a deeply rooted assumption that writing is the first and primary medium of complex thought. The Corral quipu suggests an alternative path, where knowledge was stored tactily rather than visually, relying on trained interpreters instead of texts. And yet, almost nothing is known about how the system was read. No key survives, no explanatory records remain. When Corral declined, the language of its knots may have disappeared with it. What remains is a fragment of intelligence, evidence that early societies could think abstractly, systematically, and strategically without ever putting ink to stone. If information can exist without writing, how many other intellectual systems might have existed and vanished without leaving words behind? 7. The velvet bronze mask, a face that does not belong. High in the rugged mountain region of Velebit, Croatia, archaeologists unearthed an object that immediately resisted easy classification. Buried beneath layers of earth and time was a bronze mask, finely cast, deliberately shaped, and unmistakably strange. Unlike ritual masks typically associated with the ancient cultures of the region, this artifact did not resemble a human face in any conventional sense. Its cheekbones were exaggerated. The eyes were elongated into almond-shaped openings. The contours of the face flowed with an unnatural symmetry, giving the impression of something symbolic rather than representational. Metallurgical analysis revealed a high level of technical skill. The bronze had been poured, shaped, and polished with precision. Smooth transitions between facial planes suggested the work of experienced artisans who understood both the properties of molten metal and the subtleties of form. This was not crude casting. It reflected a mature metallurgical tradition. What unsettles researchers is the mask's cultural mismatch. Its design does not align with known artistic styles of the ancient Illyrian or neighboring societies. There are no clear parallels in local iconography, no accompanying inscriptions, no contextual clues explaining its purpose. Several interpretations have been proposed. One suggests the mask represented a deity or ancestral spirit, used in rites meant to bridge the world of the living and the unseen. Another points to its exaggerated features as intentional distortions, visual symbols meant to convey power, transcendence, or transformation. More controversially, some scholars have noted similarities between the velvet mask and non-human figures depicted across widely separated cultures. Elongated eyes, stylized faces, expressions that feel neither entirely benevolent nor hostile. This does not imply contact or shared origin, but it does suggest that certain symbolic forms may recur across human imagination. Importantly, archaeology offers no definitive answer here. The mask stands alone. There is no workshop site, no series of similar artifacts, no written explanation. And that isolation is precisely what gives it weight. The velvet mask forces a confrontation with an uncomfortable idea. Not all ancient objects were meant to be understood literally. Some were designed to represent concepts, identities, or entities beyond everyday experience. If so, then judging them purely by material function misses the point. The mask does not tell us who made it or why, but it does tell us that ancient people were capable of abstract representation, sophisticated metallurgy, and symbolic expression that does not fit neatly into modern categories. When an object refuses to align with the culture around it, the question is no longer what it is, but what worldview required it to exist at all. 8. Derinkuyu, the city beneath the earth. In the heart of Cappadocia, beneath an unassuming landscape of soft volcanic rock, lies one of the most astonishing feats of ancient engineering ever uncovered. The underground city of Derinkuyu extends more than 60 meters below the surface, descending through multiple levels carved entirely by hand. This was not a temporary shelter, it was a fully functional city. Derinkuyu contained living quarters, storage rooms, kitchens, wells, schools, chapels, and an intricate system of ventilation shafts that supplied fresh air to even the deepest chambers. Massive stone doors could be rolled into place to seal off entire sections, allowing inhabitants to defend themselves from intruders. Archaeologists estimate that Derinkuyu could have housed up to 20,000 people, along with livestock and supplies sufficient for long-term survival. Such scale implies careful planning, resource management, and centralized coordination. Nothing about the structure suggests improvisation. The surrounding rock made excavation possible, but not easy. Workers had to understand load distribution to prevent collapse, air circulation to avoid suffocation, and waste management to prevent disease. These challenges were solved repeatedly, across dozens of levels. The most unsettling aspect of Derinkuyu is not how it was built, but why. Mainstream explanations suggest the city served as refuge during periods of invasion or religious persecution. Yet the depth, complexity, and permanence of the construction raise doubts. One does not carve a subterranean metropolis of this magnitude for occasional danger. There is also the question of origin. While later civilizations expanded and reused the site, evidence suggests that the earliest levels may predate known historical records of the region. The original builders left no inscriptions, no tools, no clear cultural signature. Derinkuyu feels less like a hideout and more like a long-term survival strategy, as if its creators anticipated prolonged instability or environmental threat. Cities reflect the fears of those who build them. Surface cities fear scarcity, so they rise toward the sky. Underground cities fear exposure, so they disappear into stone. Derinkuyu represents an extraordinary choice, to abandon the surface world almost entirely. That decision implies a worldview shaped by persistent danger, or by knowledge we no longer possess. If an entire population prepared to live underground indefinitely, the question is not simply what they were hiding from, but what they believed was coming. 9. The Laetoli footprints, walking like us, millions of years ago. In the late 1970s, in the volcanic plains of Laetoli, Tanzania, archaeologists uncovered something far more intimate than tools or bones. Preserved in layers of ancient ash were footprints, delicate impressions left by living beings who walked across soft ground and vanished into time. Radiometric dating placed these footprints at approximately 3.6 million years old. What startled researchers was not merely their age, but their form. The prints showed a pronounced heel strike, a clear arch, and a forward-facing big toe aligned with the others, features strongly associated with modern human bipedal walking. This was not the gait of a knuckle-walking primate or a tree-dwelling ancestor. It was a stride that looked familiar. According to conventional evolutionary models, such efficient human-like locomotion should not have appeared so early. Most reconstructions of early hominins at that time depict transitional movement, less stable, less refined, and yet the Laetoli footprints suggest confidence, balance, and anatomical adaptation to long-distance walking. Some researchers propose that the footprints belong to Australopithecus afarensis, an early hominin species. Skeletal remains of this species do show bipedal traits, but the footprints raise uncomfortable questions. Bone fragments tell part of the story, movement tells another. Footprints capture behavior in real time. They record weight distribution, posture, and intent. The Laetoli tracks show individuals walking side by side at a steady pace, possibly as a group. This hints at social behavior, awareness of surroundings, and a way of moving that conserves energy over distance. Critics caution against overinterpretation. Ash can deform, preservation can exaggerate features, context matters. Yet even conservative analyses agree on one point: these footprints do not resemble what many expected to see. They suggest that human-like walking may have emerged far earlier than previously assumed, or that our definitions of modern are too narrow. This discovery does not overturn evolutionary theory. Instead, it complicates it. Evolution is not a clean ladder. It is a branching, uneven process filled with early experiments and lost paths. The Laetoli footprints remind us that humanity's story is not written only in bones and DNA, but in moments, captured accidentally, preserved by chance. If beings so ancient could walk with a stride so familiar, the question becomes deeply personal. How far back does human truly go? 10. The Thule Papyrus, a record of fire in the sky. Among the many fragments of ancient Egyptian history, few are as controversial or as carefully worded as the document known today as the Thule Papyrus. Unlike inscriptions carved into temple walls or stories preserved as myth, this text is notable for its tone. It reads not like a legend, but like a report. The papyrus is attributed to the reign of Pharaoh Thutmose III, around 1500 BCE. It describes an unusual event witnessed by royal scribes: luminous objects appearing in the sky, described as circles of fire, brighter than the sun, moving silently across the heavens. The phenomenon is said to have persisted for days, observed by the king himself and recorded for the archives. What distinguishes this account is what it does not do. It does not name gods. It does not frame the event as divine punishment or prophecy. Instead, it documents observations, location, duration, brightness, and notes the reaction of those who witnessed it. In ancient Egyptian texts, this restraint is unusual, yet the original papyrus is lost, surviving only through transcriptions and references made in the 20th century. This has fueled skepticism. Critics argue that without the original, the document cannot be fully authenticated. Others counter that the language and structure closely resemble administrative records from the same period. Scholars remain divided. Some interpret the event as a natural phenomenon, perhaps meteor activity, atmospheric plasma, or an astronomical occurrence poorly understood at the time. Others point out inconsistencies with known natural explanations, particularly the duration, formation, and silent movement described. What matters archaeologically is not the conclusion, but the method of recording. The Thule Papyrus suggests that ancient observers sometimes chose to document anomalies without explanation, preserving uncertainty rather than filling gaps with mythology. This challenges a common assumption that ancient people always explain the unknown through gods and stories. In this case, they may have chosen something more cautious, recording what was seen and nothing more. The papyrus stands at the edge of history and interpretation. It cannot confirm extraordinary claims, but it does confirm something equally important: that humans have long encountered phenomena they could not explain, and sometimes resisted the urge to explain them prematurely. If ancient scribes were willing to write, "This happened," without knowing why, perhaps the greatest mystery is not what they saw in the sky, but what other observations recorded with the same restraint have been lost to time. What history still refuses to explain. Across continents, materials, and millennia, these 10 discoveries share a quiet but unsettling trait: they do not belong comfortably where history has placed them. A metal mold sealed inside ancient coal, a hammer trapped in stone, pipes embedded in mountains with no known builders, machines that transformed water into music long before modern engineering. Mirrors polished beyond expectation, knots that carried information without words, and cities designed to disappear beneath the earth. None of these findings alone demands a rewriting of human history. Each has been studied, debated, and approached with caution, and yet, taken together, they reveal something more profound than a collection of anomalies. They expose the fragility of certainty. History is not a complete record. It is a reconstruction built from fragments that survived fire, flood, collapse, and time. Entire societies have vanished without leaving libraries or monuments. Knowledge has been lost not because it lacked value, but because it lacked durability. The past may not have been a simple ascent from ignorance to enlightenment. It may have included false starts, forgotten techniques, and periods of sophistication that collapsed and never recovered. When we encounter objects that feel out of place, we are not necessarily confronting impossibilities. We may be confronting absences in our own understanding. Importantly, science does not fail when it encounters mystery. It functions exactly as it should, by questioning, testing, and refusing to leap to conclusions. The discoveries explored here do not prove lost super-civilizations or extraordinary visitors. What they prove is something quieter and perhaps more uncomfortable, that human history is less complete than we assume. The greatest danger is not that these mysteries exist, but that they are dismissed too quickly simply because they do not fit familiar narratives. As we continue to uncover the past, we face a choice. We can force new evidence into old frameworks, or we can allow uncertainty to reshape our questions. Because sometimes the most honest answer history can offer is not an explanation, but an invitation to look again.